Hello and welcome to another episode of the Unwanted Opinions podcast. Jay and I are back after about a month off.
Long
Schedules were
hiatus.
colliding. We were slacking a little bit, but we're back. We're here. We're going to talk to you guys about some NFL drafts. The draft's coming up. Talk about these quarterbacks. Sam Darnold just got moved. So obviously that probably means the Jets are for sure going to take a quarterback at number 2. So we'll talk about that, these top 5 quarterbacks. Well, also, if we've got some time, at the end, we may sprinkle in some NBA talk. We may talk some little college hoops. Not sure how much Jay watched of the tournament. Not sure how much I really watched of the tournament. I don't know. It was just kind of weird season for all sports, really. And then Jay may throw in some UFC stuff at the end if he's really feeling up to it.
We'll see if we get there.
So, but as always, subscribe to the Unwanted Opinions podcast wherever you find us. You can also leave a rating, leave a review. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Unwanted Opinions with Nick and Jay. Been a little lackadaisical on the social media. Life just gets in the way, Jay. Life happens.
When this isn't your full-time job.
Shit happens. And exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's busy season for you, for us. I mean, we're moving and yeah, just shit happens, dude.
Everybody thinks I'm fucking Bob the Builder and wants me to do stuff for them. Still working on my parents' house.
And your garage.
My garage.
Yeah. You got any home projects right now, Jay? Inside?
Not inside.
No, Rachel's having you do?
She wants me to, just found out today, she wants me to, on the side of the house, build like a little hangout spot with gravel and the gas little fire pit. And I told her.
Why on the side?
I don't know. I really,
not inside the fence?
Inside the fence, but on the side of the house. Because you got that little spot beside the house.
Yes.
It's like cut
okay. I gotcha. That's not bad.
If I'm doing that, I'm going all out. I'm putting posts, putting stuff in, and putting swings. And so we'll see if I do that.
I like that. There you go. There's another project for you. But let's just dig into, first off, Sam Darnold got traded. I think a lot of people probably anticipated him moving on from the Jets. I don't think they saw him as their long-term plan. Didn't really work out for Sam Darnold. Yeah, I mean,
they haven't really defended him when asked about like if they're going to trade Sam. They've kind of never really said Sam's our guy. I think that's
they never for sure officially came out and said that. Nobody in that organization was backing him like that.
And you see what like the Texans are doing with Deshaun Watson. They keep saying, even though Deshaun does not want to be there, they're saying Deshaun's our guy. We want Deshaun. We want him to be our starting quarterback. They weren't really doing that for Sam Darnold. So
the Seahawks have done similar things with Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll, and they told the Bears we're not trading him. So I'm sure they told other teams, not just the Bears. The Bears were just the most reported team who was really saying, hey, we'll give you about 30 picks for Russell.
Yeah. And good for Sam Darnold.
Not that many, but you know what I mean.
Darnold needed a new start. He needed to go
somewhere
somewhere else. I said the other day.
Get him the hell out of New York.
Yeah. I said the other day in our text, I don't think he's as good as everyone projected him to be coming out. Like, I know Kuiper still pounds the table. He was like his top quarterback, and he can still be so successful.
He was a lot of people's top quarterback.
I don't think he's that good, but he's definitely better than what was shown on the Jets. They did him absolutely no favors with his receiving core, his blockers in front of him, his run game, his coaching, defense,
the drafting there was a whole debacle his second year where they let the general manager draft a team and then they fire him like 3 days after the draft. Why wouldn't you fire the guy before the draft so that he doesn't waste half of your picks, which is what happened. And now he gets to go to the Panthers, which I'm not even that convinced he's that much better than Teddy Bridgewater. I'm not, but I get he's younger. He's got less injury concerns. And if Matt Rule thinks that this is his guy, if he thinks he can do something with him, because the Panthers got weapons. There's no doubt about it. It's definitely the best set of weapons Sam Darnold's ever played with, including college. Christian McCaffrey, one of the best backs in the league. You also got DJ Moore out there. So I know they lost Curtis Samuel in free agency, but still, I think they still have Robbie Anderson.
Yep.
So they've got him. And, they've got an offensive coach. They got a guy, and the Jets don't have that. The Jets have Robert Saleh. I'm actually not even sure who
They have
the
two
Jets offensive coordinator is
because they got
at
Joe
this
Brady
point.
too.
And Joe Brady, offensive coordinator. So you got two guys who either going to make or break him because he's got, what, 2 years left on that rookie deal.
Yep.
He's got this year and then his fifth-year option. So, I mean, that may be what the Panthers see. They were like, okay, well, we're getting this guy for cheap because they really didn't give up that much. A sixth-round pick, a 2 and a 4 in 2022 for a guy who was the third overall pick in the draft. Now, like you said,
they moved up to get, didn't they?
I think you and I, they traded with our Colts, Jim.
Yeah.
I think when we did that draft, when we previewed it, I think you can go check the tape. But I know for a fact he was my third quarterback in that draft, albeit my first was Josh Rosen, and he turned out worse than I think he was both of our first. I don't know if he was your second or your third.
I think I have it written down. He was my third. I had Rosen, Mayfield, Darnold, Allen.
And I had Josh Allen ahead of Sam Darnold. I know that for a fact because I've always been in love with Josh Allen. But anyway, so the third best quarterback out of that draft class, he's definitely not. He's probably the fourth behind Allen, Mayfield, and Lamar, however you want to rank it. That's not my rankings. I'm just saying those three guys. Darnold's definitely the fourth, but that's not what a lot of people saw. So even if they can get some of that potential that maybe they thought he was, I mean, it's a shot in the dark for the Panthers who are desperately trying to win.
The O-line, he'll be protected better. Like you said, the offensive mind, the play calling around him is going to be dramatically improved. I think they'll put him in way more positions to be successful than he was in the Jets from a play calling standpoint. I think he'll be good for them. Honestly, next year, I think Bridgewater's the better option because he knows the offense. He's familiar with everybody. But going forward, they're thinking long-term, like you said before. So, and it's a low-risk move, like you said. If they have to give up a second-round pick next year, they went after their quarterback, but they still have their first-round draft pick. I'm not even convinced that they won't draft a quarterback if one falls to them this year because they're really only tied to Darnold, I think, one more year after this year.
This year and next year.
And it's not even a huge
And
deal.
that's the same exact thing with Bridgewater because Bridgewater signed a 3-year deal. So if they can't find a team to trade him, because I also saw that Schefter was reporting that the Panthers are going to try and trade Teddy Bridgewater, try and get anything they can out of him.
Yeah, so I don't think it's off the books for them to draft one this year if one falls
I don't either.
and let them fight it out and may the best man win. But I definitely think it's a win for the Panthers. I think you have to chalk it up as a loss to the Jets because what they gave up to go get him and within his rookie quarter or contract, they're already getting rid of him and getting a second-round pick in return. Granted, they got the second pick this year and they're going to take a quarterback. They're going to get their next guy. So at least they got something for him. But I definitely think it's a win for the Panthers and Sam Darnold in his career.
Yeah, like you said, if you put it that way and say when the time came when they drafted Sam Darnold, what they gave up, because they gave up 4 extra second-round picks just to move up 3 spots in the draft to go take Sam Darnold.
Yeah, and that's a lot to give up, but they thought he was their guy. And
that's fine.
Props to them for getting off of him. This is becoming a trend, I believe, after the Cardinals said, screw it, Josh Rosen is not the guy. Kyler's
we
there,
made a mistake.
let's go take him. And they owned up to it and just went and got the quarterback because it's clear you can't win in this league if your quarterback's not at least above average. So,
and how many times have you seen teams hold on to a guy too long? And then you have to rebuild for another 4 or 5 years before you find the next guy.
Exactly. If you find yourself drafting that high again and you know your quarterback's not
Jacksonville's drafted first overall. They tried to hang on to Blake Bortles too long.
Yep.
And look what happened to them. And then they tried to go get Nick Foles. And that didn't work. Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. They've never actually had the number 1 pick in the history of their franchise, which is extremely hard to believe. Now, they've drafted in the top 5 a lot of times, but they've never had the number 1 pick.
Didn't know that. That's a fun fact.
A few years ago when they had the 2nd pick, they took Luke Jokel.
That was more than a few years ago. That was
2015, I think.
That had to be – well, yeah, that's 7 years ago.
God.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't recent because Luke Jokel.
Jeez, man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
To think that does not feel like that long ago.
No, it doesn't.
At all. But we were just talking about it the other day. This is way off topic, but one of them's been in high school for 10 years.
I know. And I did see that another round of applause to the Jets because They do have, I think, 7 picks in the first 2 rounds.
They got a lot of picks. They got a lot for that Jamal Adams deal.
Yeah.
Which
between this year and next year, I think they have 7 picks in the top 2 rounds.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But as we always say, you got to do something with them.
Exactly. So
you got to hit on them. You got all those picks. You have to.
And we'll talk about the quarterback. I mean, that's a good segue that they are probably going to draft, because after the Darnold conversation, we were going to talk about our top 5 quarterbacks in the draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to start at 5 and work our way to 1, or do you want to go from 1 and work our way to 5? Because 1, I mean, number 1, I think for both of us.
I think it's a pretty consensus 1 is Trevor Lawrence.
Yep, agreed.
I mean, I really don't think there's much to really go off of. I mean, he's one of the you knew the minute he played Alabama in that national championship game his freshman year that he was going to be something special in the league. I mean, and it was just he obviously that's something you can't top. That's hard to do is win the national championship 3 years in a row. I mean, and everyone always talked about his sophomore year. Oh, he was having a down year. Yeah, it's hard to not have a down year when you just can't top everything you did last year. It's just really hard. It's like when Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. He had a down year his second year, but he still threw for like 43 touchdowns and 4,700 yards. But he had a down year compared to what he did the year before. So, I mean, if Trevor Lawrence is the most perfect prospect since Andrew Luck, I don't really know what else to say. I mean, the guy's got it all.
That's actually my comparison for him. From watching him, I think he plays like Andrew Luck. He can run when needed to. He's not afraid to run, but he is a thrower first, runner second. He has all the mental toughness upstairs. He has all the IQ upstairs. He can make all the throws. He has a good arm. He doesn't throw lasers. Andrew Luck didn't throw lasers, but he's accurate with the ball. He knows where to go with the ball. He mastered the Clemson offense. He always found the open guy. He just wins. I mean, he's everything you want in a quarterback. He doesn't really miss games due to injury. He doesn't have an injury past. He's tough. Yeah, great leader. Everyone at Clemson loved him. I think his pro comparison is Andrew Luck. And if he can do what Andrew Luck was in the league on a better team with better people upstairs that can surround him with the right talent, I'm very interested to see how Urban Meyer is going to use him, because
I am too. I'm interested in what Urban's going to do in the NFL, because I don't think we ever even talked about the Jaguars hiring him. I don't know. I mean, we saw all of Urban Meyer's quarterbacks being non-successful in the NFL. It's hard. It's going to be interesting what offense. No, and I agree. And no, he didn't. But
he was always innovative.
It's going to be interesting what offense he tries to run in the NFL against these types of guys, because he's had, to my knowledge, I don't think he's had any NFL experience in his career.
He has not.
I didn't think so.
Nope, he is. He's been at the college level. So, I don't know. I'm fascinated to see, because I don't think he's going to come in and try and air raid like what the Cardinals tried to do. And that wasn't his offense anyway when he was at Ohio State and Utah and Florida. It was more speed, get the ball underneath, get the ball to your playmakers fast, and then yak yards and try and create plays that way. So I think that could be successful in the NFL with the right guys, but not nearly as successful as it is in college, because most of the time.
And the Jaguars don't really have the type of personnel yet to do that. And I'm not saying he has to be an immediate success in the NFL. That's rarely ever the case. But
Clemson ran a pretty pro-style offense. So my guess is he's going to bring Trevor in. He's going to ask him what he likes to do. They're going to watch a lot of Clemson film. He's going to show him stuff he did at Ohio State and try and combine the two and figure out an offense that works for both. But I don't think it's going to be as college as some people might think it's going to be. College.
And I agree with that. I mean, Urban's smart, so he's going to know. I think he's going to try and do a type of what he did at Ohio State, but he also realizes that it's a different game than playing.
But he was adaptive. I mean,
Northwestern. I agree.
He had a lot of athletic quarterbacks with like Braxton Miller and JT Barrett, but then after that came Dwayne Haskins, who was not a runner. He was a pocket passer, and he adapted his offense to underneath routes and yak yards. That's kind of what he did with Haskins. So with Lawrence, he can do everything. So it's going to be very interesting. I'm curious to see if he'll run a lot of options with him, because he can do it. He proved it at Clemson. holding the ball.
He tried to run over everybody. He's going to have to stop doing that.
Yes, he
in
is.
the NFL.
He's
because
going
he
to
did
have to
that
get down.
a lot at Clemson. He didn't care.
No, but the knocks on Trevor Lawrence to me are people trying to find a knock for Trevor Lawrence.
Yes.
I've heard people say that he's not the most accurate, and I'm like, I watch him. He fits the
think
ball
that's
into
pretty
tight windows.
false.
He's pretty accurate. He might miss on a couple throws, but show me a quarterback that doesn't miss on a couple throws. So
it's what you try and do to the very elite type people because they're so good. You don't just want to keep talking them up every time, which that's just a problem in society. Really, it's not just sports, but you always try and find the flaw in somebody and you try and hang on that.
So I consensusly between me and you, between what seems to be the NFL, I mean, Trevor Lawrence is the number one quarterback. He's been the number one quarterback in America since he stepped on foot at Clemson. So
it was just the waiting game for Trevor Lawrence.
Yep. He probably would have been the number one pick if he left after – honestly, he might have been the number one pick if he left after his freshman year just for someone to stash him.
After that Alabama game against what he did to Nick Saban's defense, he'd have been the number one pick.
He for sure would have been the number one pick as a sophomore after his sophomore year. And now
I think that would have been against Kyler. So would the Cardinals have taken Trevor Lawrence over Kyler?
Yeah.
Probably.
Absolutely they would have. To me, anyway. I mean, he was bigger, stronger. He wasn't faster, but he was just more – at that time, you saw there was a lot of people doubting Kyler, me included, because of his size, kind of the way he played, didn't think he would hold up. So when his measurements came in at like 5'10", everyone definitely doubted. If you were going between a 5'10" Kyler Murray with one good year compared to the next Andrew Luck, 6'5", 230, I think you're going to take Trevor Lawrence. So number two, I think me and you differ.
I think we do. I'm almost positive that we do because I'm guessing you have Justin Fields and I have Zach Wilson.
For sure I do. And
are those flip-flop for you, 2 and 3?
Yes, I have Wilson 3. And I think all three are going to be very good NFL quarterbacks. Let me put that out there. I think if you get any one of these three, you have a chance to be a really good team going forward. I just prefer Justin Fields over Zach Wilson.
Tell me why. Sell me on him.
He has the NFL body, so for sure he's built like a mini Cam Newton. So he's 6'3" and some change, I think, 230, 235, but he's thick. He's rocked up. He ran and don't even get me started on the 40-yard dashes.
The 40s are ridiculous.
We called this before. Any pro day, yes, we did. They were gonna all the times we're gonna come. It is so
unbelievable
fast.
How many 4.3 40s there are this year.
I'm automatically adding about 1/10 of a second to each one. So
you get a 4.3. You get a 4.3. You get a 4.3. It's like fucking Oprah.
But Justin came out and ran 4.45 somewhere around there. So let's say 4.55. That's still blazing.
Probably pretty accurate for him.
That's still blazing for a quarterback. So he can run, he can throw. I don't question his toughness at all. I
don't either.
The reports of him saying that he can't get through his first read are crap, and the reports of him not caring about football and his work ethic and all this. I don't know if people realize this. The Big Ten completely shut down their season. They shut it down for Ohio State. He was on the forefront. He was on national TV rallying to have a season. There were people on Ohio State, big-name players that opted out. There were people all throughout the Big Ten that opted out. He chose not to. If he would have opted out after last season, he probably would have been the for sure number 2 pick this year. And instead, he said, I want to play. He rallied everybody else to play. He went out there, led his team to the national championship after having no offseason. He went out in Clemson, got destroyed by the linebacker, and could barely walk. You saw him menacing on the sideline, just trying to lift his leg. Comes in the very next play, throws a touchdown. I think he lit Clemson up for 6 touchdowns. Absolutely destroyed Clemson. This dude lost 2 games in his college career at Ohio State. 2. One to Clemson, which – I still believe they got screwed out of, and he was up. And even if so let's just say they lost and they didn't get screwed. He was up big in that game, and they came back and won. So he had a lead on Clemson the first time, then revenged that loss this year by destroying them, and then he lost to Alabama this year, who steamrolled everybody they played.
Everybody.
Ohio State was down some guys, but I wouldn't even say Justin Fields played a bad game against Alabama. our O-line played like complete. The defensive line of Alabama was in his face every play. That's my one knock on Justin Fields, if I have one, is not his going through progressions, not his being able to read defenses. Is he often does
trying
not
to escape the pocket too early.
Not even that. He doesn't see or comprehend before the snap who's coming on a blitz. And that guy usually comes in free and gets to him. And a lot of times he's able to use athleticism to get away from it. He just needs to work on knowing who's hot and knowing who's coming in with his protections to get away from that guy. But no, I mean, he had more touchdowns in these last 2 years at Ohio State than Trevor Lawrence had at Clemson. He had less turnovers than Trevor Lawrence had at Clemson. He beat Trevor Lawrence head to head. I'm not saying he's better, but I'm saying he's right there. I'm taking Trevor Lawrence, but Justin Fields is right there underneath of him, and he hasn't done anything to me to not have him the number 2 quarterback. He was the number 2 quarterback coming out of high school with Trevor Lawrence. They were 1A, 1B. They've competed in college twice against each other. They each have a win. They have very comparable stats. I believe he's a better runner than Trevor. I just think he's a little bit better than Zach Wilson, who didn't play as tough competition. I know that's not his fault, but that is, you got to take that into consideration when you see who Justin Fields has played and who Zach Wilson's played. He's a little bit bigger. I think he'd hold up a little bit better. All that being said, I still like Zach Wilson. I think too many people hold on to, well, I think Justin Fields is better than Zach Wilson, so I think Zach Wilson's trash. I don't. I would rank Justin Fields.
That's not how I take it at all. And yeah. I think Zach Wilson is better than Justin Fields, but I don't think Justin Fields is trash. I think a lot of it, there's still just a stigma behind Ohio State quarterbacks that I just can't get over.
I'm glad you brought this up.
Different. I know it's different coaching. I understand it's a different style offense that they run. I get it.
You can't compare.
There is a stigma behind that university that does not develop good NFL quarterbacks.
Now, if Urban was
Justin Fields may break it.
If Urban was still the coach, I'd give that to you, because I'd say, okay, he had Braxton Miller. He had to change positions to go to the NFL. He had JT Barrett. He did not work in the NFL. He had Dwayne Haskins, who's clearly not worked to this point in the NFL. So there's a track record.
Cardale Jones, same thing.
Yeah, so there's a track record there. But this is a new head coach who was a quarterback coach in the NFL and a successful one, who runs a completely different style offense at Ohio State, a pro-style offense, who has worked and developed quarterbacks his whole career. So until he has a couple guys in the NFL that don't prove to work, that's when you can say, in my opinion, that's when you can say, okay, I don't trust the Ohio State quarterbacks. But that's what I brought this up the other day, because we have a 49ers fan that's a friend, and he's a big Kyle Shanahan guy, and Kyle Shanahan's done well with quarterbacks in the NFL. And I said, it would be like you saying Kyle Shanahan became the new head coach of Ohio State, and then he was coached by Kyle Shanahan at Ohio State. Would you still say, I don't believe the stigma around Ohio State guys, I don't want to draft him? Or would you say he got good coaching at Ohio State? I trust the development that he was given there. He could work in the NFL level. That's the way I
get all these things. I'm just saying, I think there's a stigma that needs broken. And
I'll
I know
give you that for sure.
It won't happen until it happens. So, and like I said, I just prefer Zach Wilson over Justin Fields just slightly. I think they're 2 and 3. That's just how I see it. I told you, I just feel that Justin Fields needs to go to a very good situation for him to be a very successful quarterback.
You've compared him to Dak.
I think, yes, I have compared him to Dak. I think they're very similar would have very similar careers. If the offense is stacked like what you saw Dak had in his first couple of years, great offense, great running back, great line, weapons. That's what Justin Fields would have if he went to San Francisco. And he would have a much better coach than what Dak had, and Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy. He'd have Kyle Shanahan, who's gotten the best out of every single quarterback he's worked with. I mean, you just go down the list. RG3 won Rookie of the Year with Kyle Shanahan. Kirk Cousins has had his best season with Kyle Shanahan. Matt Ryan won an MVP and went to a Super Bowl. Jimmy Garoppolo went to a Super Bowl with Kyle Shanahan. So Shanahan has proven over his time in the league that he gets the best out of every quarterback he has. I think that's an absolute perfect situation, really, for any one of these quarterbacks. I mean, it's probably hands down the best place to go if you're one of these rookies.
I believe they're going to take Mac Jones.
I don't know if that's true.
I do. I think I've read, and
I've seen all of them too.
Too much smoke to be not true.
And I know it kind of reminds me of when the Giants were telling everybody they were taking Daniel Jones and nobody believed it.
Yeah.
And then they ended up taking Daniel Jones at 6. That's what it reminds me of. But I really don't know. I don't see why they would, because I don't understand this. This is a conversation that we've had numerous times. We could just move on to, I've got Mac Jones at 4 or 5 between him and Trent.
As far as I know, you didn't really give the why you like Zach Wilson.
Okay,
so much.
Well then let me go back. We'll go back because we're on the Mac Jones topic right now.
I don't want to go there yet.
I don't understand why he's not being talked about like Tua was when Tua was coming out of the draft, because this was months ago when we talked about this after the national championship game, everything. We've talked about this with a Dolphins fan who's a very big Tua truther. To his grave, he will go defending Tua, which I respect. It's his team. That's his quarterback. You do you. I'm not a fan. I don't think he's that great.
I will give him credit. He loved him before the draft. He wanted the Dolphins to draft him. He was very high on him before the draft, and he's sticking to his guns.
Mac Jones had just as good, if not a better season than Tua did.
For sure.
With worse weapons, you could say, because Tua had all 4 of those NFL receivers. Mac Jones had 1.5 because Jalen Waddle got hurt.
Yep.
Now, I know he had the Heisman winner and Devontae Smith, and he also had Najee. The offense was still fucking loaded. And they've got 3 NFL offensive linemen. You got Saban. You got that defense. I just don't know what the difference is between Tua and Mac Jones, because I don't see much difference when you go back and look at the tape.
I think Mac Jones is better.
And you can make that argument.
I said that. It was in the middle of the season, I believe, of the college season.
I just don't know. I don't get what it was. And this kind of sounds like a Tua bash session, but it's not. It's more of I'm just confused that Tua got all this praise, but Mac Jones, it's like he was carried.
When Tua had more help, and you could have a better argument that Tua was carried.
But it was the other way around. It was Tua was carrying everybody and elevating them.
I agree.
But when it's Mac Jones, it's the absolute complete opposite.
Yep.
I don't get it. It's
he is shooting up draft boards right now. And like we just said, I believe he's going number 3 over Justin Fields and guys like Trey Lance and Kyle Trask and Kellen Mond and all these guys. So he's must be gaining respect inside NFL circles. So it's going to be interesting. What did Tua go 3rd?
Yeah. Tua went 5th.
5th. So Mac Jones could, in theory, go higher than Tua did.
Yep. Yeah. That's true. But there's not a lot of people saying that Mac is better than Tua.
No.
I think you'll find it rare to see that.
Rewind. What do you like about
Zach Wilson?
He's my 3.
You know this about me, Jay. I fall in love with arm talent from quarterbacks.
Yes.
I did it with Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Drew Lock. You can go all the way back to Deshaun Kaiser at Notre Dame.
Yep.
And
you have hits and you have misses.
Which is probably the biggest miss I've ever had at the quarterback position.
We both were on Josh Rosen too, as our number 1.
True. Very true. Very true. Okay. All right. So we've had some misses. We're not perfect. I also loved Carson. I loved Carson Wentz because of his arm talent. I still like Carson Wentz, and now he's a Colt, so I love him even more. But that's just what I just fall in love with those guys, because those are things that you can't teach. And I just think he can throw from any platform. He's got the cannon. I really like. I listened to many interviews from him. There's a really good one with him and Peter King on Peter King's podcast. I don't know if you listened to that.
I did,
Jay, but I really liked it. I just really liked his demeanor. I like what he does.
Driving hours every weekend, I think, or something. Just
like 6 hours every weekend. Yeah, to do this. And so I really like the kid. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. I just think he's smart. I think he makes really good decisions. And he put up great numbers with playing with nobody. I mean, that's something to itself. I just think and I know he didn't play as good competition as some of the other guys did, but I just really like the kid.
Yeah. I clearly think he's pretty good too. He's my number 3. And like I said, I think if you take any of the top 3, I think you're going to get a very good player. I love all the throws he can make too. His off platform throws, like you were saying.
Yes.
Now when I say lasers, he throws lasers. He'll
yes, he
be
does.
running to the right, and people compare him. I've heard his arm talent compared to Patrick Mahomes. I don't see Patrick Mahomes. I told you, I see Kyler Murray. The way he throws the ball, his release points, the way he just like flicks his wrist and the ball just goes in a dead spiral right where it needs to be. Yep. I think he can put it. I think he's the most accurate quarterback in this draft. And I know that's a big plus and need. So why wouldn't he be my number one quarterback? Because he can make all the throws and he can escape and blah, blah, blah. I told you his size scares me a little bit. He has some injuries in the past that's kept him out. Was it his sophomore year? He was hurt, or one of his seasons, I think
it was his sophomore year. I think you're right.
So he has an injury past. He's not that big, and I know smaller guys can succeed in the NFL now, but that still scares me. I'd rather take the 6'4", 6'5", 230-pound quarterbacks ahead of them that have just the thicker frames and can also make the throws. But arm talent, I know that's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot. Arm talent, he might have the best in the draft.
He checks all the boxes.
Yeah,
and he definitely does.
Clearly, he wants to be great. Like we just said, he was driving 6 hours on the weekends when he didn't have to, just to go. Was it to Trent Dilfer? It
was Trent Dilfer. Yep.
Yeah. So he has all the drive and the want to and the tools to succeed. And I think he's smart, and I think he's a good leader, and I think he's going to be a good quarterback. I just like the two guys ahead of him a little bit more. But I'll tell you what, if your team gets Zach Wilson, I'd be pumped if I was you.
I would too.
So
if he does indeed go to the Jets, I mean, you got to hit on those picks because you can't let that guy just die there, because that's a franchise where quarterbacks just go and their careers die.
To me, he's a lot better prospect than Sam Darnold was coming out, though.
I absolutely agree with that.
So he's my number 3 here. Sam Darnold was my number 3 that year. I think if I could combine the two, I think Wilson would have been my number 1 quarterback between these two draft classes.
Or compared to last year?
No, between Darnold's draft class and this draft class.
Oh, Darnold.
I think
okay,
Wilson
Darnold
would have
draft
been my
class.
number 1. That's how much I like him.
We still might have fallen in love with Josh Rosen.
Yeah, maybe. So even then, maybe he's my number 2. But
yeah,
this is interesting to me. Who's your number 4?
This is interesting
because we've never got this far out of our top 3.
I think there's a gap between the first 3.
Agreed.
And then I think I do think it is Mac Jones.
I agree.
And I think it's because I also think it's hard to judge Trey Lance, because to no fault of his team only played 1 game last year. I mean, North Dakota State only played 1 game because of COVID and everything. So it was hard to judge him.
Is Trey Lance really, number 5?
Yeah, he is, just because I don't.
Me as well.
Okay. I've seen some people think Kellen Mond's better than him. I personally don't.
Chris Sims is a big Kellen Mond guy.
Yes, he's a huge Kellen. I think he has Kellen Mond over Justin Fields.
He does,
too, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So, but I've got Mac. We kind of did our Mac thing just a few minutes ago, but
I still think he's smart. He's accurate.
On the 49ers, I think he can succeed. Like I said, I think that's a place he could go and be pretty successful. I think New England probably is a place that he could go and be pretty successful. I think there's limits to where he can be good, because I don't think he's going to just go and fit on any team and be a good quarterback. He, to me, is not that type of player.
No, I compare him to Teddy Bridgewater. I think he's not going to make many mistakes. He's very smart. Their offensive coordinator at Alabama, Steve Sarkisian, said that he was able to implement the most offensive game plan he's ever been able to implement with Mac Jones, because he could take more and more and learn it and understand it. And you saw it on the field. He always made the right play. He always knew where to go with the ball. He always knew where the open guy was going to be. So he's very smart. He's restricted arm talent wise. Mobility is not great. I think they're underselling that. I think he can move enough to get out of the pocket. I think he can move enough to.
I mean, he's not like a statue. He's not Phillip Rivers or.
Yeah, he can scramble for 6 yards up the middle and slide if he needs to. but he's not super mobile. He's not breaking out of sacks in the backfield like a Justin Fields, like a Zach Wilson or a Trevor Lawrence. But his mental game makes up for that. He's very smart. He's accurate with the ball. He didn't have as many wide open guys at Alabama that Tua had in the past, and he was still able to have the better season. So I think he's a good quarterback. I think he can be a good quarterback, but kind of like you said about Justin Fields earlier, and you just said about Mac Jones, I think he has to go to the right situation in order to succeed. Yeah. He's not going to the Jets and taking that franchise to the playoffs like Absolutely I believe not. Zach Wilson might be able to do when you get a little bit better talent around him. Mm-hmm. He could go to the 49ers and dime the ball the way Kyle Shanahan wants to and take that team to the playoffs. He's not going to go to, I don't know. He wouldn't be able, in my opinion, to go to Cincinnati and do what Joe Burrow did his rookie year with Cincinnati, where you saw the upside and you saw what he's going to be and get excited about it. I believe if he would have went to a team like Cincinnati last year, he would have had major struggles, and then you would have been doubting why you picked him that high. So,
definitely. Or even the Chargers, what Herbert was able to do.
Yes.
I mean, they went 7-9 with what he did last year. I don't think Mac Jones can do that. I don't think if Mac Jones went to Washington and say that Fitzpatrick and Taylor Heineke get hurt, I'm not sure Mac Jones could pull that offense and score a lot of points and carry them because they're not that good offensively.
Yeah. And Trey Lance, a lot of unknowns. He has all the physical tools you would want.
Yes.
He looks like Josh Allen when he's out there playing. He can throw the ball way down the field. He can run. He can jump. He's a physical freak. It's just
– I think he looks like Kane Brown, the country singer.
A little bit. I could see that. But I haven't seen enough. And to me, he's a runner first. And I don't like that. I believe he can develop into – because I haven't comped to Josh Allen coming out of college. After seeing what Josh Allen's done in the league, I don't believe his ceiling could ever be as high as what Josh Allen's doing right now or like he did last year. But I think he could get close with everything going right. I just think he's an athletic freak who definitely wants to run first. I mean, they ran him so many option plays at North Dakota State. I mean, he probably ran the ball 50. I didn't look at the stats, but probably 12 to 15 times a game there. So his passing was based off of his running. And to me, as an NFL quarterback, I want it to be the other way around. If you can run, I want your running to be secondary to your passing. So that's why I have him at 5.
Yeah, I've got him at 5 for basically the exact same reasons. I just there's not enough tape on him, really. You're basically just taking a kind of a shot in the dark and saying
for his one good season.
He's like the prototypical guy you would create if you're creating a guy in Madden or you get a quarterback on the lab. That's the body you put on him, the arm, the speed. That's it. I just don't know if he's got the mental makeup because we just don't know. It's very uncertain with him. So he's just, to me, I think he'll be more of a project in the NFL with the ability to succeed.
Which is what people called Josh Allen, and look how he turned out.
For sure. I didn't view Josh Allen like that, but
I mean, I know I did, and I also know a lot
of people did.
The media were calling him a project with huge upside, and he turned out to be pretty good. And it took him a couple years to get there. He definitely had his struggles coming into the league. So
definitely. What if Trey Lance is like a Josh Freeman? Kind of same body type. I think Trey Lance is maybe a little more athletic.
Yeah, than Josh.
But Josh Freeman had success for a few years in the league.
He had a big-time arm too, but no, I don't like that comparison, Nick.
I said, what if? I didn't compare them. I said, what if he has a career like him?
If he has a career like Josh Freeman, he was a bust in the first round.
I agree.
So,
or a Jason Campbell.
Now we're getting somewhere. Again, he's a better runner than Jason Campbell was, but you could argue, but the thing is, if you want Jason Campbell's career, to me, in order to be compensated for your draft pick, that would have to be bottom of the first round.
Yeah, because I mean, Jason Campbell was also a first round pick, but I guess if you look, I mean, he had success. I think he took the Redskins to the playoffs a couple times, and so, but I just was saying, I agree. I don't think that's the best career you're probably envisioning is Jason Campbell, but is it realistic? Probably.
Yeah, I could get behind that. Who would be your number 6, just out of curiosity? Mine would be Kyle Trask.
I like Kyle Trask too. I see that the Saints are interested in Kyle Trask.
I saw a report
I don't think that's bad.
that they might move, like somebody might move up into the first round to get Kyle Trask. And I'm like, that's a little rich for me. But fun fact, did you know that he's had the most touchdown passes in all of college football over the past 2 seasons?
I did not know that. I think it was those last couple games where he looked pretty bad because early in the season, when he was like one of the Heisman front runners, he was being talked about a lot in the Heisman. Those last couple games,
I want it to be known that Justin Fields was only a couple behind him, and he only played 6 games this year.
Okay, but still, you get my point though. Trask had just a terrible finish to the season after the highest of the highs, and Florida lost a lot of close games at the end and got blown out a few times. So I'm not sure. He maybe to me is just probably a career backup, a spot starter type guy.
Got to keep your eye on Davis Mills out of Stanford. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, one of the top pro prospects. He did not play last year. He could be. He had an injury as well, but he hasn't played in, I want to say, like 18 or 19 months. But he has all the tools to be successful at the next level. If a team takes a chance on him in like the 3rd or 4th round, he could come out guns hot. So
give me a pro comparison to this guy.
Oh, don't get crazy. He's Jared Goff, but Jared Goff took a team to the Super Bowl.
That's true.
And he had a lot of talent around him. Did
he take the team to the Super Bowl, or did the team take him?
Either way, he was a starting quarterback on a Super Bowl team.
That is the question.
The latter, just for the record. But where do you want to go next?
I just want to kind of talk some college hoops. How much of the tournament did you watch, Jim?
I watched Ohio
I know you
State
didn't even fill out a bracket.
You're like the round, and then I quit watching.
You're like the lone loser who didn't fill out the bracket this year. You just always fill out a bracket, man. Who cares?
I know. It was just a weird season. I didn't watch enough during the year to know what the hell was happening, and then it came to tournament time, and I don't know. I've been busy, man.
After your Buckeyes lost, you just were pissed.
I actually was pretty pissed because I watched like their last 3 games of the season, watched them get beat by Illinois, and then they went into the tournament. I thought they had a shot, but hey, I want it to be known they lost to a team that went on a little Cinderella run.
Oral Roberts played well. I mean, you did. You just got to tip your cap to Oral Roberts. I mean, yes, it was definitely a weird tournament. That was honestly to me what was obviously the championship game last night kind of sucked. I mean, I think Gonzaga just ran out of gas. I think they used every last bit of energy they had against UCLA, which they should have lost to UCLA. But that's neither here nor there because Johnny Juzang got called for a charge that wasn't a charge. It was definitely a block, and he should have shot 2 free throws to win the game against Gonzaga, and then UCLA would have been playing for the title. But anyway, so maybe Gonzaga's luck just ran out when they got beat by the better team in Baylor. So, but, I mean, you saw the first round, 15 seed, 2 13 seeds, a 14 seed. The Big Ten was terrible in the tournament. It was fun. It was weird. I like that it was in Indy and they had games at Mackey and at Butler. So it was just cool that Indy hosted the tournament and some games here in town. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to know what you watched and what you didn't.
I didn't. Let's just leave it at that. I didn't.
That's fair. All right. Yeah.
And I know you got some NBA you want to go over. Do you not?
I do, man. It was honestly, it's kind of been sucky lately because I mean we've had so many guys hurt. I mean,
from what I've seen, I will again give another caveat. I haven't watched too much NBA this year either, but from what I've seen, everybody's hurt. They're talking about everybody in the MVP race that is in contention for the MVP.
Now they're all going to miss like at least 10 plus games, and
no one's ever been given the MVP with missing more than X amount of games in a season. And
it was like Bill Walton in like 1973 or whatever. And he missed like 20 some games.
16 games in a 72 game season, not even an 82 game season. So
because now Harden, even though I don't think Harden was going to win, he was going to probably get a lot of conversation But what he did to the Rockets this year, I think that basically canceled him out of the MVP conversation. But now he's got hamstring issues. Durant was out for over a month. I think he's finally going to come back tomorrow and play.
And everybody's
LeBron's
still
out
on this Brooklyn train, and
that sprained ankle.
Yet to play together that much. If they all can't play together during the regular season, do you think they're all just magically going to get healthy and be 100% in full-on team chemistry mode? Yeah.
This is exactly what everybody fell in love with the Clippers last year. And you saw that it went to shit when the Clippers didn't have any experience playing together, albeit the top guys on the Nets are better than the top guys that were on the Clippers last year. But still, I mean, it was similar issues. I mean, I think it was at one time, I think Durant was out, LeBron was out, AD was out, Steph was out, Embiid was out. Zion just missed a couple games with his thumb being hurt. I mean, Luka was sick or something, but it was just a lot of the stars were just out. But, I mean, that's just really what sucked because the Lakers are sliding down the standings. I mean, I know they picked up Drummond. I really don't know what your thoughts on them picking up Drummond are. I think it'll help more in the regular season than it will in the playoffs because I'm not sure how valuable he's going to be in the playoffs because I don't think he's going to play much closing time for the Lakers.
To me, I think he's better than Marc Gasol and Dwight Howard were last year. I think he's an upgrade over both. I think he's.
I would agree to that.
So,
and he'll be much better when LeBron comes back.
Yes, I don't think it's going to hurt them. I definitely think they got better when they brought in Drummond. I've just yet to see how much better.
Yeah, because I think he's only 27. I feel like he's been around for forever,
and he's a rebounding machine.
Yes, he is. I mean, you don't just walk into 17 and 15. And I know he's not been a winning player most of his career, but I mean, the past 8 years, who has on the Pistons? I mean, and the best player he played with was fucking Reggie Jackson.
Yeah, he's always been looked to be the guy on the team, and now he's the third, fourth guy.
Yeah, he's probably their fourth or fifth best player, depending on how you feel about.
Which is great for him, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And so we'll see, but like I said, I think it means more now if he can actually play because he's hurt too. Yep. So he's not currently playing. So we'll see when they get him back. But
I'm very curious how many of these are actual big time injuries, or if people just really want rest during the regular season. And a
lot of people were saying how this was LeBron and Anthony Davis's offseason because they didn't really get one.
Well, and you also saw what they did last year when LeBron sat out, and he was hurt or not. Wasn't even hurt. I'm sorry. When the regular season got suspended and they didn't play, when he had that extended rest period, he was able to come into the playoffs. Whether you think it's weak, whether you don't agree, the dude's in year 16, 17, 18 of his career,
18,
and still playing 36. At a high level. If I'm the Lakers,
I'm 36.
Yeah, take all the time you need, man. If we make the playoffs, I trust that you'll get us to where we need to be in the playoffs, home or away.
One of the top seeds, because the Lakers are just kind of falling down the standings, which any team would do if they lose their top two players. It's just going to happen. One of those top seeds in the West is going to be really pissed when they get LeBron and Anthony Davis in the first round.
Yep.
Like Denver or the Clippers or the Suns, or I don't think they'll fall all the way down to 7 or 8. But so the Jazz and the Suns will probably escape the Lakers. But one of those top 3 teams are going to be pretty pissed that they get to see probably the best team in the league in round 1.
I want to know your thoughts on the Suns because, granted, again,
I
haven't watched too much basketball this year, but I am following the standings and I see they're pretty high up there and
they're second in the West right now,
winning
which is
a lot of games, and
they're a top 5 defensive team in the league. I mean, it's the Chris Paul effect, man. That dude just wins everywhere he goes. I mean, he refused to lose last year in OKC. He absolutely did. I mean, I know they didn't win a playoff series, but they took the Rockets to 7, who everybody thought was going to challenge the Lakers, which obviously that didn't end up happening. But still, I mean, and Devin Booker's a young star in the making. DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul is just putting him in the right spots, getting him the ball, just making his life a lot easier, not making him have to be the best player on the court because he's just not that. And then they just got young, hungry guys, and Mikal Bridges and Marcus Johnson. And Jay Crowder was a nice addition by James Jones in the offseason, just another veteran, tough guy, good shooter. I just love what they do. Monty Williams has that team rolling.
So do you think
they
they're
started
legit?
the season. Okay, define that, because
do you think they could give the Lakers or the Clippers a run for their money in a 7-game series?
I think they could beat the Clippers. And I think they could make it tough on the Lakers. Like, I think it would be a hard 6-game series for the Lakers if the Lakers are fully healthy.
The Lakers missed AD for 2 of those games.
Yes, they did. In one of the games, they got pretty blown out.
No.
By the Suns.
I'm saying in the playoffs, in the 7-game series, Lakers miss AD for 2 games. Who wins?
LeBron's
Everybody
still
else
not
fully
going.
Healthy. Okay.
LeBron.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, and I mean, and like you said, I just am not sold on the Clippers, man. I've been out on the Clippers for 2 years now. Everybody was blowing a bunch of shit when they got Rondo. I don't know if anybody's watched Rondo play. I think he used every last bit of Rondo that was left in the playoffs last year for the Lakers, because he has been awful this year. He's been arguably one of the worst players in the league. And I'm just not sold on the Clippers. If you have a team with Paul George on it, I just can't bet on you in the playoffs. I just can't do it. I don't care. And after his really hot start to the season, he's been hurt. He's had foot issues, toe issues. So and he just hasn't been playing as good as he was in the beginning of the season. So I'm just not there. And
let me rephrase it a little bit different. Do you think, where would you slot the Suns in the power rankings in the West? Throw out the record.
If all teams are healthy,
yep,
I'll go Lakers.
Yep.
Nuggets, Jazz, Suns, Clippers.
So you think they're the 4th best team in the West?
Yes. Yeah. I really love, we haven't got to the Nuggets. I really love the Aaron Gordon addition for the Nuggets, because they didn't really have to give up much. They only gave up Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, and a 1st-round pick. And Aaron Gordon is a guy who, on Orlando, they expected him to be the best player on the team. Now he's either the 3rd or the 4th best player. He's an athletic, bouncy wing who can guard people, because I think he's actually a pretty good defender, because they just played those Clippers a few nights ago. And I mean, I thought he held his own against Kawhi and PG when asked to do so. He's a good cutter for Jokic, who loves one of the best passers in the league. I mean, he can hit threes. That's not his game, but that's not what they're really going to ask him to do, because they'll put a lot of shooting around him with Murray, who has been on fire lately after a slow start, which was pretty surprising for a lot of people, just because of what he did last year in the playoffs. But Denver's been reeling off. I think they're like 14-3 in their last 17 games or something like that. So I think Denver's the 2nd best team in the West. I really do. I think that's what everybody expected at the beginning of the season, but they just really started off real slow, which, I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense because of the lack of time that they didn't have off, which, like some of the other teams that made it pretty far into the bubble last year, which is kind of expected for them to do. But I love Denver. I'm a huge fan of Murray and Jokic, and I really like that Aaron Gordon. They've got Will Barton back, who they didn't have last year in the playoffs, who's playing really well. And now it relegates Millsap to the bench, who's much better suited in that role at this age. So I'm a fan of the Nuggets. I think they're pretty good. Now,
what's another buyout that you liked or trade that happened? I know there were a few you sent me the other night. You said were all the big ones. I'm
curious about the Oladipo to the Heat, because
I mean, you kind of went back and forth, but you should let them know what your thoughts are on that.
The Heat, I mean, he's been wanting to go to Miami for a very long time. I mean, that's been reported for almost 3 or 4 years. He was playing pretty well with the Pacers this year at the beginning of the season. And then when he went to Houston, I mean, Houston's just an absolute mess. I mean, they're clearly tanking, because if they finish outside of the top 4, OKC gets their pick. So they're trying to lose so they can get inside the top 3, probably to get Cade Cunningham. So, but I don't know if he buys into what Miami does. And I just didn't know how much of an addition he really was for the Heat, because he's not a good 3-point shooter. He's a good cutter, but he's like I told you, he's just been so used to having the ball in his hands all the time because he was the primary playmaker for the Pacers for the past 2.5 years. And then in Houston for the 16 games or whatever he played for him, that's what they asked him to do because he was their best player. So they didn't know what else to do offensively. Defensively, he'll fit right in and gel because he's an athletic wing who the Heat didn't really have. But I'm just kind of curious on that. And the Heat didn't give up shit for him. I mean, they literally gave up nothing. Avery Bradley, Olynyk, and a pick swap, which the Rockets pick will probably end up being lower anyways, so that will amount to nothing. So
my gut feeling says Oladipo is going to work there. I just think he's going to need to.
Jimmy Butler won't let it any other way, or he'll be gone.
That's his team, no doubt about it. Especially after what they did last year because of Butler. Mm-hmm. He's established that Miami's his team, and if he gets out of line, he's gone. Yeah,
for sure.
Get him shipped out of there.
And that's not the type of player he really is.
I don't think so either.
He always buys in, and he does probably what's best for the team most of the time.
And he'll work defensively.
Few exceptions in
Indiana. I think the guys will like him. He will give it his all on defense. It's just offensively, I don't know how he fits in that system.
I don't either.
Because he's not.
That's the question. Shooter. No, and I think he would be better suited as a bench role, but what he thinks of himself, I don't think he would accept that.
I don't think he would either, but he might have.
So, but you talked about the Nets a little bit. They're the big talk. Everybody is in love with the Nets and getting LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin. Do people really not realize? Yes, if LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin are their 6th, 7th, 8th best player, that's great and that's fine for the Nets. But everyone was just absolutely making such a big deal out of these guys going there. I mean, the Spurs just absolutely gave up on LaMarcus Aldridge. Greg Popovich was like, I'm done coaching this guy. He didn't want to be here. I don't like him. He's not a good defender. He's definitely not the player he once was. It's a reason why he was bought out, because he's not that good of a player. It's the name that is getting everybody, because it's KD, Kyrie, Harden, LaMarcus, Blake Griffin. It's
bunch
big
of former
name guys.
All-Stars on the same team, but that's the former All-Stars that are past their prime. Outside of the top three guys are still the top 3 guys. But
for sure. It's just kind of funny. I love seeing all these. There was a ton of memes saying how scared of LeBron the Nets were and everything. It was just pretty funny about now, because KD and KD apparently was recruiting these guys the most. LaMarcus Aldridge said it, and Blake Griffin said it. They said that KD was the guy that recruited him the most to come there, which –
while we're on the topic, I have not got your thoughts on the Michael Rappaport KD Instagram DM.
It's weird.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Michael Rappaport and KD slid into Michael Rappaport's DMs, I do believe, and was just going ham on him. He brought up his wife, doesn't respect him. He was talking about he's going to find him at a game and spit in his face, and he wants to meet him somewhere and fight him. And all this stuff, and
I mean, the NBA fined Kevin Durant $50,000 for
which is
that.
Shit to Kevin Durant, but Michael Rappaport exposes the DMs and basically says he crossed lines, which, in my opinion, he did cross lines.
He did, for sure.
I don't like how Michael Rappaport just put it all out there for everybody to see, because it was a direct message right to
That's
him.
what Michael Rappaport does.
I know. I'm not a huge fan of his, but
I can't stand him.
Yeah, but
KD was definitely in the wrong. There's no question.
From KD's standpoint, I have no idea why he does this over and over.
He can't help himself. He just can't.
To me, it's to the point where it's like an addiction.
It definitely is. I mean, you don't keep continuing to do these things if you don't need continuous satisfaction. And it just sounds like he's just a very insecure person. I think you've kind of gained that from.
I understand
some KD over his career.
Low-life young person who just loves to troll other people because it makes them feel good or whatever. But Kevin Durant, former MVP of the league, all the money in the world, on a team that's contending for an NBA championship, who has all the fans in the world, has anything he wants he could get, and he insists on stooping to this level over and over and over and over. If you're nobody on Twitter he'll respond to you if you hit too many buttons, and it just makes no sense to me. The dude who's been credited with burner accounts in the past, that he's admitted to it.
He's owned up to it. He's said that he's admitted it.
It makes no sense.
I mean, that's just part of the reason. That's another reason why I just have not fully bought into the Nets this year. I just can't get behind those guys' personalities because we've talked about it before, but Kyrie's already left the team 2 different times at 2 points in this season. I mean,
their leaders are very unstable.
I mean, does he do that in the playoffs? I mean, we've talked about their playoff failures, the 3 of them collectively that they've had before in their careers. And then, so if even 2 of them are having a bad game, yeah, you've still got one that may be killing it, but are you counting on Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge at the end of games to close you out? No. Those 2 guys? I mean, can you at this point in their career against the Sixers if they're playing Embiid and then Embiid's got it rolling?
A great quote from the greatest movie of all time, from the great Julius on Friday Night Lights. He said, attitude reflects leadership. And there are 3 top leaders, like you just mentioned. One quit the team twice, said they didn't even need a coach. James Harden threw everybody on his team under the bus to demand a trade to get out of there. And Kevin Durant's over here trying to fight people on Twitter and tell them they're going to spit in his face. And that's the guys that are supposed to lead you to a championship.
Yeah.
I'm not buying it.
I'm not either.
I think they're good enough to get out of the East based on just pure talent.
They're definitely good enough to get out of the East, and they're definitely good enough to win it all. I think they really are. They've got the talent. I just don't know if they have the mental makeup to do it.
Nope.
Because
when stuff gets tough, I just don't believe they're going to step up and be able to.
I don't either. I mean, they can have all the talent in the world, but we've seen that happen so many times in every sport where it just doesn't work if you just can't gel or you just don't have that aspect of the game, because that's a big part of it.
Stuff got tough in Oklahoma City. Kevin Durant didn't. I mean, the city embraced Russell Westbrook. Kevin Durant said, "I'm out of here." Yeah. Stuff got tough in Houston. James Harden threw everybody under the bus, said, "I'm out of here." Stuff got tough for Kyrie when he wanted to be the man.
In Cleveland and in Boston.
And he ran away. And again, those are the 3 guys that you want when times get tough to come together and pull you out of this.
Yeah. I mean, who on their team is going to lead them? I mean, because
I don't know.
You also talked about those 3 guys. You look at maybe their next best player, if whoever you think it is on their team, LaMarcus Aldridge,
just quit.
He wanted out of Portland. He wanted out of Portland because Dame Lillard was becoming the bigger star in Portland, so he wanted out. San Antonio, he couldn't figure it out in San Antonio with Popovich and Tim Duncan and Kawhi and Tony Parker and Ginobili.
And then,
so I mean,
I've heard people
Blake
say
Griffin,
he quit on the Spurs.
He did. He absolutely did. And the Spurs kind of quit on him. But, I mean, and LaMarcus Aldridge wasn't traded like 2 years ago. But Popovich went up to him and said, "Get me Kevin Durant or Giannis or somebody like that, and then I'll get you traded." But he was like, "But you're not going to get me that type of player." So, yeah. We'll talk more about the NBA in a few weeks. Next pod, see where things are. Hopefully we get some of these guys back. I'm just dying to see LeBron play again, man. I watched the game where he got hurt, and it's just crazy that's the first time that he's been really rolled up like that in his career, where he's been forced to miss this amount of time. 18 years, and this is the first time that he's just sprained his ankle that badly, where he's missed a month and a half, or going to miss a month and a half total.
It's good for him to be healing up.
Hey, he might get the rest that he needed. Same with AD, and then the league's in trouble.
Watch out.
Yeah. All right, Jay. We got to wrap this up.
Okay. All right.
I know you didn't get your UFC in tonight. We'll fit it in. Well, I don't know when their next their big fights are or whatever. But
let me give you 30 seconds.
All right,
wrap it all up in 30 seconds. Francis Ngannou is the scariest man I've ever seen in an octagon. John Jones is becoming a bigger and bigger pussy by the day. He wanted the fight, and he just said $9 or $10 million isn't enough now to fight. Derek Lewis might fight him, which will be a fantastic fight. Derek Lewis beat him the first time around. Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira are fighting for the title. That'll be a very interesting fight. Long due for Charles Oliveira. Michael Chandler, new upcoming star, just brought over from a different organization who is a monster. Nate Diaz is going to fight. He's going to fight Leon Edwards, who has not gotten his due up to this point, and finally getting some recognition for not losing a fight in like 8 or 9 fights, finally getting a chance at a big name guy. And then finally, Conor McGregor's fighting again in possibly July, fighting Dustin Poirier, who just knocked him out the last time they fought. So we got some very good fights coming up, very interesting fights. You need to get more into the UFC because it's
that awesome. One I would be intrigued with is Conor. He can get me to the TV.
Yep, and this will be the trilogy. Conor beat him way back in the day. This time around, Dustin Poirier calf kicked the shit out of him and then knocked him out, and then now they're going to fight for the third time. So very interesting fight. And then there's a fucking YouTube sensation star going to box a UFC guy who the UFC guy was a wrestler, wasn't even a boxer, and Jake Paul outweighs Ben Askren by 50 pounds. I still think Ben Askren's going to get him, and that's going to be hilarious. But a lot of good fights coming up, so stay tuned. Mike Tyson said he wants to fight again to where there's no weapons, to where he wants to knock somebody's head off, and he's still scary as ever, so that will be fun to watch. But I love it.
All right, Joe.
Get more into that. That's where I've been putting my energy I've had to pick my spots in the UFC. I've been picking it.
For those of you who don't know, Jay loves to hurt people, so that's why he loves the UFC.
That's not even accurate. I love the UFC. It's a fantastic
I just like to say that to you because you get fired up, Jay.
It's a fantastic sport and on the rise, so watch out.
All right. That's pretty up there on the rise, so.
All right. Don't forget to subscribe, do all that stuff Nick said at the beginning.
Yeah. We will not be taking a month off in between our next episodes.
It's draft season, baby.
That is a Unwanted Opinions podcast guarantee. So we will be here.
I don't know what position we'll be doing next, like we did quarterbacks today. If you want to hear a certain position, let us know on the DMs, on the
email us.
unwantedopinionspodcast@gmail.com.
Slide in our DMs.
Otherwise,
on any
we're going to pick it. So, all right. You ready?
Yep.
Until next time.
I am. Until next time.